Hey guys, it's Justin back with an engineer's perspective, and I'm back with something that's a little bit different than my normal topic, I'd say. And it's knives, but it's fixed blade knives. And I haven't talked much about these on the channel, so I thought I would just kind of show what I've got and kind of share my thoughts, and hopefully that's interesting. I kind of got them broken out into three categories. Let's start with this over here. So these two fixed blades are my kind of outdoor knives. This Mora has seen some stuff. It's a Mora Companion, what do they call it? Heavy. It's the carbon steel one. I believe it's $10.95. These are super affordable, super easy to get. I think they're like, $20 or something. They've got that Scandi grind on there with these handles that are molded. It's hard plastic on the butt, so you can actually hammer things pretty good with it. Then it's got this grippy rubber on there, and the contour of this handle and how it fills your hand is just like immaculate. It's the best handle out here for sure. It's the best handle I've held. The closest I've held to something feeling as good as this handle was the Benchmade 200 Puko, which I used to have, and I'll talk to that a little bit. But this was my first fixed blade, well, actually my second, but my first outdoor fixed blade, and I bought it because my folks live near a very wooded area, and I used to do lots of kind of like outdoor bushcraft stuff out there, and this was a lot of fun. So this got a lot of use, made a lot of fires, doing feather sticks and gathering materials and making little crafts and whatnot. So great knife. I mean, I don't think I need to talk too much more about the Mora knife. Just buy one. Everybody should have one. They're great. The carbon steel holds a pretty good edge. If you scrape with the edge on a Scandi grind and on this steel at this hardness, it's gonna roll. But this is a great outdoor knife. So that was my first outdoor knife. And then I upgraded. My local Cabela's at the time had a sale on the Esee 6, which is this big bad mamma jamma right here. They had a sale on it, so I picked it up with the original handle scales on it. And this knife is not a good bushcrafting knife. I'll say that up front, but for some reason, there's just like an X factor when I use it, and it just works so well for me. I don't know why. It works better than almost any other knife that I use, so I actually really like to use this out in the woods. Like, my preference is to bring this big heavy guy and then like a folder for those small tasks, or one of these two blades up here would be this one. But I got this one for that heavy duty batoning through big stuff, kind of light chopping sort of work, and I do the small, more intricate tasks with this exposed heel back here. And that's something I really like about this design, is being able to get right up into there. I think if I were to do it again, I'd be tempted to get the Esee 6 HM if I wanted to go the Esee route. But I'd say they're more like survival knives than they are bushcraft knives, because they're big, they're heavy, they're thick. The geometry, the cutting geometry behind the edge is really egregious, like 40 thousandths behind the edge at 19, 20 degrees per side. So just thick with two C's. It's $10.95. That's not particularly hard. So the edge out in the woods for like a day is like fine for me in my experience. So it's not like awful, but it's a survival knife, not a bushcraft knife, but it's got an X factor that just makes it better than it needs to be for me. So I really love this knife because of that kind of X factor. You can see I use some paint stripper to strip off this black coating that you can still see on the handle here. So I stripped that off and then patinaed it in apple cider vinegar to prevent the 1095 from rusting. I have what is it called? Flattened out the spine to make it sharp for striking a ferro rod. So I've done that as well. And then this are the Knife Connection is the website. They've got these custom G10 handles here. I think they look really good. They make it way more comfortable. I love the micarta handles for the texture and how they get so grippy when they're wet, and just they're really awesome. But I wanted the contour because my hand can get a little bit tired holding this big heavy knife when I'm working with it a lot. Sheath is just okay. It rides a little bit high for me, but you know, it's got a lot of options and you can do things different, but the sheath is fine. So this is kind of where I started, and I kind of wanted something that was more like the Mora but high end. So I got the Benchmade Puko 200, and that has a great handle. It has a great blade shape, but the edge geometry on it's just okay. And the one I bought was the old soft heat treat on 3V, and like the edge it held was worse than either of these with that Benchmade. And I had only like 3 sharpenings in it, so maybe I hadn't gotten through the burnt steel on that 3V, but it just did not hold an edge. So if you're looking for those 200 Pukos, make sure you get a new production one with a much harder heat treat on it, and I think that would probably be pretty badass. So those are kind of my outdoor knives, just kind of general bushcrafty survival stuff, just, you know, cutting up logs and making fires and whatnot, and little toggles and things like that. It's just kind of for fun. That's those. Let's go over to the hunting knives. So this was my actual true first fixed blade. I got it for Christmas from my parents. You can see there's a recurve in it from me sharpening it on the original Work Sharp like pull through sharpener. This thing's pretty much hot garbage, and it's hot garbage, and I recognized that pretty early on using it, that this thing is trash. So this is like my garage knife, or like pry things or scrape things and just generally destroy it. So this thing's poo-poo. This is not. This is the new model of the Benchmade Steep Country in S30V. This is like in some, you know, low 5 CR garbage pot metal steel. Well, not pot metal technically, but garbage steel. Wow, just stabbed myself. Really good, actually. Anyways, so this is an S30V. Benchmade does a pretty nice job on their S30V. It's not amazing, but a pretty nice job. But I actually had the original Steep Country with a slightly different handle. Is a little bit thicker, a little bit more belly up towards the front here. But the big thing is it had a much thicker behind the edge profile. And when they came out with this version with the lighter weight sheath, thinner, lighter knife with these little ridges on the back are more comfortable in this version, and that thinner cutting geometry, got rid of the old one, bought the new one. The S30V wasn't as good on my old one as this new one also. So it's a better heat treat on this one. And this is a sweet knife. I can't talk to it too much because I actually haven't used it on anything but, you know, dead chickens. I've broke down a few chickens with this knife, and it is, you can tell that it's got this geometry. It's like 15 thousandths behind the edge at 17 degrees per side, I think. That's pretty thin. With a decent steel like S30V that's treated decently, like this thing is a performer, and it's light, it's comfortable. You know, it's a good to get your finger up there to protect that tip so you don't stab the guts of animals when you're in them. So I like that, being able to protect that tip. It's got a little bit of belly for skinning, but it's not like a super aggressive belly that gets kind of annoying for me sharpening. So I think it's a good compromise. It's got an exposed heel, which I like, being able to use that point for stuff. So this handle material is really proven to hold up. It's very grippy without being like annoyingly grippy. Really great knife design right here. And I'll be taking it, clean up a few pheasants with it next weekend. So looking forward to that. Sheath is just, it's lightweight, it's simple, it works, holds the knife just fine. It's meant more to go into your pack than wear on your belt. They've got these really goofy, tiny little belt loops, I guess. I honestly think they're more for like pack lashings, all these holes. If it was me, what I would do is I would run paracord this way between these two holes and then these two holes, and then I'd slip my belt through the paracord and you'd be fine. You could neck knife it, or you could hang it like this off of your belt if you did a, neck knife it up like this, paracord through there. There's a bunch of options. So some people complain that this thing's a little bit goofy with these little slots, but to me, this knife is supposed to have paracord in these holes, and you can carry it this way, that way, however. So I think it's a good lightweight sheath that'll hold up. This is a great little knife. Can't wait to get it out in the field. The old one I did use to break down 2 deer. This one I have not. The old one did just fine, and I think this one is better in every way, so I think this is gonna be a real good performer. For the price too, they're like $115. I don't think you can do much better for the price. Hunting blades. Now on to kind of my more general utility blade. This is the Spyderco Waterway in LC200N. I bought this blade after I sold my Benchmade 200. And I was hoping it would be like a thin, slicey kind of utility blade, but it's not that. It's not thin and slicey. It's reasonably thick behind the edge, 24 thousandths or so at 17 degrees per side. But what it is like an outdoor utility blade. I think I have a review on this knife actually, so watch that for more on it. But it's like it's basically if you took this Esee and then made it as small as possible while still being able to do the heavy tasks, like that's what this is. It's like to the max. This is as light as it can be, with as thin as a handle that it can be, but as, you know, as grippy as it needs to be, like without going too far. Like it's on the verge of everything of being bad, but it's not, if that makes sense. You know, like this could be 40 thousandths like the Esee, but it's not. It's 24 thousandths. And so you can still abuse it hard like the Esee, and it's still not going to break, but it's going to perform so much better because it's thinner. Just that's the philosophy, is everything's pushed to the breaking point, but it's not breaking. So I like that about this knife. I think it's a really nice design. I think it's really well executed as like a general utility knife. And that's what I like it for. I love the LC200N. Very low maintenance, very easy to sharpen, takes a 6 screaming edge that is just so fun. It's a really great steel, and a really great knife that I think, yeah, they pushed it to the limits on this one. And yeah, it's light and thin, but very comfortable and handy. Nice sheath. I really like this pocket clip, not pocket clip, but clip that they do, because it can go, this can go on a belt, it can go on sweatpants, it can go on swimming trunks. This clip goes on anything, and it holds well, and you can easily extract this blade. Great utility knife. Yeah, and I kind of bought it as like the more extreme version of like an Esee with the better steel and this more extreme designs, but I put it into my kind of utility EDC area versus outdoor knife, because like if I was doing a shingling job, I'd probably be inclined to bring this up with me if I wanted a knife, or if somebody was like, you know, doing some rock or mulching or whatever, like this would be the knife. All right, on to the kind of the small EDC fixed blades. Let's start with the good. This here is a Carter Cutlery Apprentice. I think it was made by Adam. Original model neck knife. It's got Arizona desert ironwood handles, and it is a 3-layer construction. So you've got 410 stainless on the outside, Hitachi white #1 carbon steel on the inside, and then 410 on the other. This is hand forged using, you know, the ancient Japanese techniques, or not ancient techniques, but Japanese forging techniques in Oregon in the United States, in Murray Carter's shop by, like I said, an apprentice, meaning that this was a much less expensive than like their journeyman Muteki knives or the Carter Cutlery ones. I got this for like 200 bucks, a little bit less. And I love this blade. It came fairly thin behind the edge, not super thin, but fairly thin. It's got this tiny little handle that's so comfortable. You can really apply some force with that. I like the front finger choil being able to get right up in there and really apply some force for such a small little blade. It's just so comfortable, so capable. The white number 1 is done really well, really hard on these knives. So it cuts for a long time. It sharpens super easy because it's just carbon. You know, it's just carbon and iron. That's it. It's super clean. It's really nice. I've put this thing through the ringer. I broke off about a 1/4 inch of the tip once, and I reprofiled it myself. So I fixed that tip up after I broke it off. You can see how much I've sharpened it from where this original little nubbin is. It used to extend out that way, so you can see I've brought it back up quite a ways because I've just used the crap out of this thing. This is probably my most used fixed blade out of all of them. I've used these two a lot, but not in recent years since I moved away from, you know, the folks quite a few years ago. But this thing is awesome. You can use it in the neck knife fashion, and as I've got it set up here, I do have this sheath, which, oops, backwards. You know, you slip your belt loops through there, and it can go on there. But what I find is it kind of slides around on my belt when I deploy it, and it doesn't hold it in super tight. So what I actually prefer, as you can see on this one, I've drilled additional holes in there, and what I'll do is I'll use a paracord to lash this to my belt so it's super tight, and then I'll, you know, cut the ends of the paracord and burn them so they stay, so you can actually see a little burn mark there. And then I'll push this knife. So imagine, you know, this is like my belt, or I'll do this as my belt and my fist is my belt buckle. So I'll lash it to my belt, and then I'll push it so that the end of the sheath is up against my belt buckle, and it tucks the end in so you cannot see it when it's on my belt. And it's super light, super handy. We just reach down, deploy it, cut, away, great. Sharpens well. It's pretty thin geometry without being too thin to do work. Super comfortable handle, easy to deploy, everything. Now let's go to the opposite. This is an Esee Izula, just the one, not the two. This is not a good knife at all. The first thing is it's a little bit hard to deploy, not awful, but a little bit. It's very hard to get back in. The handle is not comfortable. It's a little bit short for my hand. You know, my thumb is kind of falling off back there. It's 40 thousandths behind the edge. Like, just let that sink in. 40 thousandths behind the edge on a knife this small? Like, there's nothing you can do that requires that geometry, and that's at 20 degrees per side. It came with a recurve in the back that I have fixed. It's just not a good knife. It's thick at the spine, thick behind the edge. The coating has a lot of drag when you cut through materials, so it's not a very good, it's like as bad of a cutter as it could be, which for a knife this size, it needs to be. It's 1095 steel, and you know, it's okay for like wood tasks, like in this knife, but for this, where you're gonna be cutting through more man-made materials, it's just too soft as heat treated. It's just not good. Esee has their, cause you know, and I'm not hating on Esee here, because I love the SE6. I'm just saying that a knife in this size factor for like an EDC knife is trash, okay? It just is. What it might be nice is like a outdoor backup knife where you would like baton this little knife just so you have something. It might be good for that, but I still think it should be thinner. And yeah, it's just not a great knife. I might get rid of this one. It never gets used. I bought it because it was on sale at my local store just to like try it out, and it's just not for me. So yeah, that's that. So not much of a conclusion here other than maybe to say that, you know, absolutely my favorite fixed blade is the Carter Cutlery. I could do without that one. I could do without that one. I'm going to prioritize them. I could actually do without the Mora, even though I think it's a great knife. Carter Cutlery's first. You know, I feel like I need something in this S30V with this geometry for hunting, so I don't think I could do without that. And I just don't do much outdoors anymore, so probably the SE6 next. And this is just kind of a nice, fun knife. So that's kind of my order, my priority of blades and how I think about them. But yeah, that kind of gives you an idea of my thoughts on what I look for and enjoy in fixed blades and things of that nature. But that's kind of my engineer's perspective fixed blade roundup. So that's all I've got. Thank you for watching. Have a good one. Bye.